Okay, so we have discussed about the analytic components. Now let's discuss about basic components, what it does. So the first basic component is this is button. The usage of button is when you want your user to have some click functionality and based upon that you want that some action to be performed. You want to open few URLs. So we have plenty of usages. One of them, like, you can save your application, you can open a new application, means whatever you are already using, you can redirect user from that application to another application. Also, you can open a standard URL also. So like that one, you have plenty of usages depending upon what you want. So let's say we want user to provide some URL, so that if he requires some information, so let's say we have a URL for home page. So what we can do is we can make sure that whenever user clicks on this help button, we will launch that URL. So let's consider, just ignore this one. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to just open a new window, that is SAP.com. So just trying to show you that we are trying to open one page. You can have anything depending upon your maybe some information of your home page, of your help page, or it can be anything. So like that one. So when we will execute it, if you click here, so it's not opening because this system does not have that internet connectivity. But if you see, it has launched the Internet Explorer and trying to direct to www.sap.com. So these are few of the usages of button, not one of them. You can export also your application. If we have an option, you can export also the same function. You have export also, like which one you want to export, export type, Okay, but
Hi, this is Kiran.
yeah,
See, when you click on that link, right, it will generate a hyperlink, right? I mean, the page
yeah,
gets open in another window. So
yeah.
that page is always, starts with the local host and followed by the
No, no, no,
uh,
not that one.
website.
No, no, it will be standard page and standard link only. It will open only like that one. Maybe actually this local browser has some by default setting which is getting it, but generally it's not like that. It will open you the standard URL.
Okay.
So like that one, we have plenty of other things you can export your application. What export does it? Export allows you to export your applications cross-tab data only. So that we will see later what exactly export does it. Then we will see that export functionality in detail. But right now I was telling you what are the various scenarios in which we can use this button. Okay. Now the next one is chart type picker. So if you remember when we were discussing about chart, we saw that okay, what chart type does, that by default it will give you a column chart, but you have the flexibility that you can change the chart type also, like you can have it in the form of line, you can form pie chart. So whatever it is compatible, you can change it. Not all you can change it, depending upon what are the dimensions, or I will say, so depending upon what are the number of dimensions and measures you are using, it will show. Like you here, if you see, we are showing only one dimension. So if you will try to say, let's say bar combination, it will come. If you say dual axis, let's say bar dual axis. So since we have two measures we are showing, it will show you the value. So depending upon what you are showing, it will try to change it. But here if you display one column or one measure only, let's say sales total we don't display, so in that case, like dual axis few chart will be not compatible, so it will show you error. So let's say we don't want to show rental total. Why it's hanging everywhere. So now if you see, I have added one measures only, restricted that, okay, I should have only one measure. So when I try to change it to bar dual axis, it is showing that you need to have at least two measures. So it is not able to show. So obviously you will whatever are the compatible format or whatever you feel that we can convert, they will be displayed. Okay. Let's remove the filter. Why it's hanging? So, but whatever changes in the chart type, what you do here, chart type, these all are done while your application is being developed, when you are creating the report. It's not something which user can do it. So it's not something you can provide user the functionality that he can do it at runtime or do any changes like that one. So if you want your user to have that flexibility that he can choose the chart type, so in that case we need to use that one. You just need to map it to the chart, that okay, for which chart you want to use that one. So you will say, let's say chart 1. So let's say I want to change it to column chart, line chart. So whatever we were doing when we were changing the chart, we can do it into there. So few will be available, few will not be available. So like that one, we can change it different type. So while user executing the report, he has the flexibility or he has the option to change his report type or chart type as per his need.
We have removed two measures, right? But still we can see.
No, I
I
just
mean, one measure.
no, I put it back again.
Okay.
Data selection was there that we have removed it. But this feature or this component, this chart type picker, we don't use too much. It's not that much use because generally when you change the chart type, it's more of a like predefined. Like when you are creating your application, you are pretty much sure that okay, what needs to be changed and all these things. So doesn't add too much value to your application. If I say in a very layman term, just changing the chart type just will not, it just complicates the application. So when in very rarest of scenarios, this object comes handy. Maybe when user wants to view and he is not very much sure that okay, which chart will suits his requirement at best perfectly. So in that case, you can provide that functionality, but not very much. I will say whatever I have experienced, I have used this one. Okay, so this is your chart type picker. Now let's see checkbox. So here let's say this checkbox is something very generic object which even many real-time applications you would have used, not even from the business object tool. When real-time, when you browse your any internet website, when you purchase anything, or when you are viewing any information for anything, any product or anything, so you will have some few checkbox option. Like the basic would be something when you browse or when you are shopping online, so you have some option, let's say exclude out of stock. So what it does, it you click on that one, so it will not show you the item which are excluded, so which are out of stock, or depending upon any other condition. If you check, let's say you want that okay, I want only published in this year, you are searching for journals, so you will check box published this year. So like that one. So checkbox give you a functionality something like 0 or 1, yes, no. Depending upon that action, you handles your objects. So you can have this checkbox and based upon that selection you can resume your application or using your reporting. Like, okay, let's say the simplest example what you can say is like, let's say you are having a chart here which is having a detailed, a very aggregated report only for, let's say, 4 or 5 countries. And this report what you are having, let's say, so let's say you have having, data source not loaded. Some connectivity issue looks like. Okay, let's leave it. I don't think some issue with the data source too. So what actually I was trying to say is that assume that the below cross tab what we are having is a very detailed report. It contains the information like for every country, as you saw in the data source here. This information, this DS2 holds the information like country, and within that what is the town. So that detailed information it is having. So I don't know why it's not loading. So you are having a detailed report. Generally, as I told you in the last session, that graph used to have very aggregated data. They are not supposed to have a very detailed data. And these cross-tab tabular form of data, they used to, suppose, have a very detailed data. You can show aggregated data also on the cross-tab, but generally we prefer to that one. So in fact, you can say cross-tab is a kind of superset of this charts. So let's assume that, okay, this is the way the things are present. You will show, okay, why it's hanging right now. Okay, so what you want is that, okay, whenever user selects on this one, you will make this chart visible. Okay, so, and if it is not checked, he will not make it visible. So by default, it will not be visible to the user until unless he checks it. You will not have this. So, and this will also start your scripting thing, introduction to the scripting thing. So we will, what by default every object has a visibility and which is set to true by default. So if you want that, okay, any object should not have that visibility, you need to set it. So what we will do is, let's say for this cross tab, we will set the visibility as false, so that when our application launches, it should not be visible. When user clicks or checks more precisely this checkbox, he will get the detailed cross tab visible. I will say best practices or the way which can make your scripting part easy. It's not very complicated or something. So scripting part is it's a kind of a JavaScript code which makes your application dynamically. Like you can choose the actions dynamically. So how you do the application in JavaScripting? First of all, you need to what you need to set, that object name you need to choose. So whenever you press Control plus space. So first of all, try to see in a very layman term that okay, what is the task, what you need to do. So if I say you whatever we are trying to here, what we are trying is whenever user checkbox clicks on the checkbox, okay. So depending upon whether he has checked or unchecked, the visibility of cross tab should be set. So the first thing we need to check is whether he has checked or not checked. So when you press Control plus space, it gives you all the object name, function name, and few of the variables and all these things, whatever are available. So we will create a if else block, and here we will see in the condition. It's a general if condition which you would have used in any other programming language like C, Java, SQL. So we will see that okay, checkbox 1, and whenever you select any object, when you press dot, it will gives you what are the all available functions available to that checkbox. Okay. So it gives you that okay, for checkbox, these are the all the functions available. So what we are trying to use here is in the if condition, we want to check whether the checkbox is checked or unchecked. So even you don't need to remember the function. All are available with the name. You can easily get that okay, this is something, and even they have given a slight text on the right hand side here also, which can help you to understand better that whether that function suits my requirement or will cater to my requirement. So as I told you, we are trying to see that okay, if any function is available by which I can get that whether the checkbox is checked or not. So if you see, we have a function here is checked. So even if you have doubt what it does, you can see this one. So what he's telling that returns whether checkbox is selected. So this is exactly we want. So it will return you Boolean value whether it is true or false.
What scripting
Yeah,
language is this? Is this VB scripting or something?
JavaScript.
Okay, so here, I mean, here, we can't have
Here,
SQL here. Is it the only scripting language we have to use here?
yeah, it is only scripting part. What is the JavaScripting? You cannot have that SQL or any other thing here. It's just simple JavaScript.
Okay.
Okay. So the same how we check is that whatever value it will return, either it can return you true or false. That you will see whether it is true or false. So it is returning true. Okay, so let's say we are putting the condition if it returns true. So in that case, what we need to do is we need to set the visibility of this cross tab. So as I told you, like you need to select the object on which you need to perform some action. So we need to perform on cross tab. Okay. So cross tab to dot. So what is the functionality we are trying to achieve is setting the visibility. So let's say that, let's see, all the members are functions are available. Do we have any function which sets the visibility? If you see, we have a function set visible. So what it does, show or hides. What is the parameter which you pass is visible. What is that? It is a Boolean value. So what you need to enter is whether true or false. So if checkbox is true, that means user has checked it. So in that case, what is the visibility we need to set? True. So we will pass true here also. Then you can have else. In that else part, you can set the visibility as false.
Can you click on the dot again?
Just a minute. Dot, like if you say cross tab
The,
2,
yeah, yeah.
then what dot gives you is all the functions that you can perform on that object. So if I say dot, so it will gives you all the function like get bottom margin. What is the bottom margin? CSS class, data source, height, get selection, get width,
No, for setting
like that.
visibility, I saw some other function is visible also. So I wanted to know the difference between set visible
Is
and is
visible,
visible.
is visible,
The,
you,
yeah.
you can see, it will tell you. So what it turns you is, returns whether component is visible or not. So it gives you value. Is visible, it's as the name itself said, is a little bit explanatory, like is visible. So it's something which tells you that okay, whether it is visible or not. So if you see here, initially we have set the visibility as true or false by default. So if you will try to find that okay, so in some scenarios we have to find that okay, that whether that object is visible or not. So in that case, it makes sense. But generally that is visible is not very much used. Generally we use these functions for setting the visibility. But in some case actually what happens is you have to see if it is visible, then you make it hide. If it is hidden, you make it visible. So in that case, before setting the visibility or what you do is you try to check which one, what it is doing. So that is, so let's try to execute it. So initially, if you see, your cross tab is not visible. If I click on show details, my cross tab is now visible. If I uncheck, it is gone. So depending upon whatever user clicks or whatever is action, whether it is checked or not checked, it gives you the analysis. So this is one of the usage of checkbox. You have plenty of other also. Okay. Then we have this checkbox. some issue with this tool today. It's behaving very weird. Okay. So what checkbox does it? This is also very generic component which you would have used many time in your real time also. It's not something very unique to you. Like when you are, I will just quote a simple example in real time. When you browse online, when you, let's say you are shopping for any electronic item. So you have a list of brands that, okay, when let's say the phone, mobile phone you are purchasing. So you will have plenty of brands, Apple, Sony, Samsung, HTC, all these things. So you will have checkbox so that you can choose whichever brand you are interested. So maybe let's say 10 brands you are showing, so you can select 2 values, 3 values, 5 values depending upon how many you are interested. So similarly, the same thing, it does it here. How it works, where it works, as I told you, when you want your user to choose few of the values out of the total. Now, how it works? If you click on this object, you have items. So the values what you want to display on the checkbox, that you can attach to this checkbox group in two ways. First way is you can directly hard code the values. Okay, value 1, value 2, value 3, and all these things. You can have one values by default as a selected, and like this one. So, but this is not very much used. I mean the way that we generally don't hard code the value because you never know that, okay, what are all the values which that field can have. But if you have some fixed value, let's say you are going for region. So you know that, okay, 3-4 continents are there, or maybe 3-4 regions are there. In that case, it's fine. But in most of the scenarios, you would like to attach it to the any dimension. That may be a country, region, date, employee region, or employee category, like that one. So in that case, let's say you are attaching to country. So in that case, it's not possible for you to list all the value of countries for so reason, like you might not know exactly the way it is represented, and just to avoid any spelling mistake, any mistake. So what you will see is, okay, directly I will attach to the dimension, so that even if dynamically it keeps on changing, any country adds, it will be removed from that one also. If a new is added, that will automatically added. So I was just telling you that these two are possible ways. Generally we use the second method, which I will tell you, but we have also the first method. So the second method is you can just click on item, go here, you have here, if you see, input bounding and output binding. So what it does, so by default you will not have any binding, so you have to specify that, okay, dimension members binding. So if you see, now nothing is being displayed because I have said that, okay, I will map the input binding. So when you select that one, so what happens is that initial text is removed. Now we have to go through via data source path. So you can map it to any data source, let's say data source 1. Then you have to specify that, okay, what dimension you want to use. Okay, so let's say I want to use country name. So it will display you all the country name. Then you have the flexibility that, okay, what is the maximum number of components you want to display. That may be 10, 20, 30. By default it is 100, but even that 100 is not restriction. You can have more than that also. But I don't think you will find any situation where you require more than 100. Then the next thing is text and key. That, okay, what you want to display. Remember, because for some of the values what happens is that there is a key also. So mostly you will have the same thing, text and key will be same, but in some scenarios it is different. So you can select, generally what we select is text only, because what happens is key are sometimes very encoded form or coded something which user will not be able to understand. So what we do is we generally prefer this text. Okay. Now this thing, all member text, this is something very useful. What it does, it gives you, you would have seen that many of the drop downs or filters, you have something called all values. What happens is whenever user selects that value, it means that he does not want to have any filter. So what they have done is they have provided you an all member text. Whatever text you will provide, so let's say if I say all value, okay, so this value will be, or this text will be added to the list first value. If you see that all values has now is the first value. So what it means is that he treats your dashboard interpreter or design studio interpreter considers that, okay, whenever user will click this text, whatever you have written, it means that he needs all the values. So you will say that, okay, this I can achieve also in another way, like I can just click all the 5 values that will also serve the same purpose. So what you are telling is fine, but the problem is if you have, let's say, 15 or 20 values. So if you want that, okay, I need the filter, I don't want any filter, I want to select all the values. So you have to go and select each of the values one by one. So to avoid that repetitive work, which might be irritating, so you can just click on single thing, all values. So you will have the selection for, it will consider as you have selected all the values. Okay. So this is the first thing, that is input binding. So if you execute the report, you will have list of all the values. Now if I select any of the filter, any of the values, the value is not changing because I have selected only input binding. So the task of input binding is just to display the value. Okay. So I told you that's why that, okay, we have two things, input binding and output binding. So if you see there is no output binding selected. So if I want some output binding, I need to say I need to have an output binding also. So then it will appear here, output binding also. So here you need to specify what is the target data source on which you want to apply the filter. So you can say DS1, DS2 or whatever you want. And then what is the dimension? Okay. So now if you will select anything from the checkbox group, it will change your chart. So I selected France. Now value only for France. Germany. So France and Germany. Yeah, if I say United Kingdom, France, United Kingdom, Germany. These two things. And remember that if I select all values here, so you would be saying that I am not getting all values. Reason being because you have already selected some other also. So just keep one point and remember that all values only works if you have not selected any of the values. If you select any, even a single value, that value suppresses your all value selection. So if you want that, okay, my all value should work, you should uncheck everything. Even if you see I have United Kingdom and all values, so it is not, it gives priority to your selection. All values is executed at the last. And if you don't have any selection and you have selected all values, it will work. So if I just uncheck it, it will work. Okay. So this is something important which you need to keep in mind when you want to use all
This
values.
this all values is a keyword or what is it? I mean, is it
No,
a
no, nothing.
predefined function?
No, no. You need to tell, and whatever you can write it. You can say all also. It will work. Whatever you will say here text, whatever you will enter here, it interprets this as a all value. So it doesn't matter text or keyboard. It's not something you need to be specific. It's just like it is easily understood for user. So something like that you should do this text here. That's it. Nothing is specific for the text. You can have as your wish.
Okay.
Okay. So this is how your checkbox works. So not so this is one of the very used component. So now similar to checkbox, you have three more components. Okay, so that I will cover in together. One is drop down, then one is list box, and another one is radio button. These four are more or less similar with very minor difference. Okay. The way they will work, as I told you, you need to go input binding, output binding. You need to do the same for each of them. You will click on item. You have to specify dimension member binding, filter binding, the same thing for all of these four. So the same way we did for the rest three. Okay. So now the question will be, what is the difference between these four? If all of them serve the same purpose, then in which scenarios to use which one? So the first and foremost criteria, or if I say the difference between them, is that these two, checkbox group and list box, they are used when you want your user to have multiple selections. That, okay, I want some countries to be displayed and he can select few of the countries, few of the region, few of the brands, few of the years. So in that case, these two are used, list box and checkbox group. They are, remember, they are multi-selection. You can select more than one. Okay. Whereas drop down and radio button, they are single selection. You cannot select more than one. So the first and foremost criteria when you are selecting that, okay, out of these four, which one I should choose? Because this is very important, that which one to choose. Because initially I also tried to figure out, but then I decided, okay, this is the way I need to proceed. First thing which you need to see is what your user wants is single selection, multiple selection. Let's say he wanted an HR report where he wants to filter by the male and female. So, and you want that, okay, only one to be selected. So you can say, okay, if he wants only one, then I should go either with the drop down or radio button. Okay, so out of these four, two you can easily discard depending upon your usage as a single selection or multiple selection. So now the next question comes is, okay, let's say my requirement was that user wants multiple selection. So I said, okay, these two goes out of the scene. Drop down and list radio button goes out of the scene. I have to choose between checkbox and list box. Okay, so I have narrowed down my choice from 4 to 2. Now out of these two, which one to choose? Since both are multiple selection, so ideally you can choose any one of them, it's fine, no issues. You can choose any one of these two, but I am telling you what is best. So what next you need to choose is that, or you can say something which you need to consider is that checkbox group does not have a size restriction. So you cannot restrict the length. So let's say you have 6 elements you are present here, you cannot reduce its size. The length, or you can say the height it takes automatically depending upon the number of values or the number of list of values. If it is more, it will expand. If it is less, it will automatically compress. So you don't have that control over the size. So the scenarios in which you have, this is something which will occur in most of the report, that you will have a space constraint, as I was yesterday mentioning in last session, that when we use the components, like you remember we were using navigation panel, filter panel, they were good, but the problem was that they were using too many space, consuming too many space, too much of a space. So if you have a space constraint, let's say you have 10 values to display and you have some space constraint, so in that case you will not use checkbox group, you will use list box. Okay, because for list box what happens is, let's say I want to give some 10 values. Okay, so list box, I have advantage, I can show only those items, or I can customize the height. If I have some, let's say, space constraint, what I will do is I will say that okay, just display 5 values, remaining if user wants to see, he can scroll down. If you see here, in the checkbox all the values are displayed, you don't have the flexibility, but here I have the flexibility, I can show 5, more than 5 if you want, you can scroll down. So it will not occupy my whole space. If I have 10 values, 15 values or 20 values, I don't have to show all the values. This is advantage with list box, or I will not say advantage, this is something, a feature of
What if we have 1000 values in checkbox, so it will go to the next page, right? All the values.
Generally I don't think it has the option to select more than 1000 values. You will, very rarely you will have that 1000 values.
So what will happen? Like it will go to next page, all the checkboxes.
Maybe, I don't think so. It will go, but I think it will provide you a scroll bar for a page to list the value. I have not tried that one. Maximum what I have used is 20 values, not more than that. But I can try, or you can try also and see what it gives. So that is something different. But in real time, when you will build any application, you will not have that much value. Because if you have 1000 values, I think it will take at least 10 to 15 minutes for a user to browse all the values. So it will not have any usage. So that's why we don't use that much value. Okay. So, but you can, just for testing purpose or just for as a curiosity to know that okay, what happens, you can try that one also. Okay. So that's what I was telling you, that these two have their limitation. And also one thing which you can keep into mind is that obviously, as I told you, that this checkbox group displays all the values. You cannot have that, okay, you can display the first 5 and remaining scroll. So one more criteria is that whether user is interacting with this filter frequently or very rarely. Because if he is interacting with this filter frequently, so in that case actually it makes sense for him, you to give him show all the values. Okay, if let's say these countries are there and uh, he wants to select between these countries very frequently. So in that case, it makes sense that, okay, show him all the values, because he need to scroll every time, it will take time. But if he is not interacting with these value very much, let's say these are the regions, and if he select Asia Pacific or Asia, he will do all the juggling, all the calculation, all the manipulation in that region only. He will not touch these regions too frequently. So in that case, it doesn't make sense to show all the value. You can just have. So there are few these best practices concepts, or you can say approaches, which you can take while selecting that out of these 4, what I need to select. So basically 3 criteria. First one, single selection, multiple selection. Second criteria, do you have the space constraint? If not, go for checkbox. If yes, go for list box. Another criteria, let's say you don't have that space constraint, but still you want to see which one to use. So you can see that, okay, if it is very frequently used, go for checkbox. If it is not used that frequently, you can go for list box. Same thing applies for here. This drop down, it is only shows one value. Whether you have 10 value, 20 value, it will only show one value. And this radio button, it is similar to checkbox group. Depending upon the number of value, it will keep expanding. So you can say checkbox is similar to your radio button and list box is similar to your drop down. So you can just try your hands with these 4 and see which one suits which of the application. But this one, drop down, this is something out of these 4 which will be used most of the time. I am not saying that these all will not be used, but this is something which will be used very frequently. Okay. So generally out of these basic components, this was something very useful. Then this date field, actually it involves a little bit of more complex scripting, so I will just give you a brief idea what it does. When you want your user to select some value or some date, and based upon date you want to perform some action, something, let's say that depending upon whatever date he selects, you want that, okay, that year data. So if we select today's date, so obviously year is 2017. If we select last year date, but the thing is, one thing or one most important thing regarding date field is, generally date field calculation requires plenty of string manipulation, because the way the date field it will have, you will not have in the same format in your backend system. And believe me, in most of the scenarios, you will have different format. It will be displaying, if you see here, so February 21, 2017. So what my tool Design Studio shows is in this format, February 21, 2017. There is one more format which you can get it, but that I will see later. So maybe, but your backend system might be expecting in, let's say, 02/21/2017 or maybe 21 Feb 17. So generally getting the value will require plenty of string manipulations. That's why I was telling you that we will see in the next session how we use this date field, because it involves a little bit of complex scripting which I don't want to touch right now. Similarly, this formatted text view, it's a simple text when you want to display some header or kind of this one, some text. Actually this is not very much used. We used to use this text, this formatted text view. You can say it's a subset of this text which is already suited for your header or titles kind of thing. So because they have given it bold and font is a little bit large, so it's a kind of predefined template, you can say. You can use it to display some heading or title, but it's kind of the same thing you can achieve via text also. But the thing is, you will require to change the font and size, font, bold, italics, all these things, but it is already predefined. So that is just the advantage of formatted text. And then another thing is image. Image thing is simple here. You don't have to worry too much. You just browse wherever your image is there and just it will display. The only thing which you need to consider is the size of the image and the type of the image, because as far as I remember, initially there were many restrictions on the type of or the format of image you can use, but slowly I think they are more or less accepting all the formats, so not much constraint. But still, you, if it is not displaying, because what format I have used is BMP, GIF, JPEG, MP, and PNG. So these 4 or 5 format it accepts. So I don't think it will be too much issue. But still, if you are having some image, if it is not displaying properly, you can just see that, okay, is that the format to accept, plus the size. Ideally, it should not go beyond 100 KB. But if your image is a big image, you can compress it or try to show it. So these two things you can try to see that, okay, if is it going beyond the limitation, because with every release they change the specifications for image, because initially they did not allow only JPEG images were supposed to be used in 1.2. But then slowly they added few more formats. Similarly with the size also, initially it was only 10 KB or 20 KB, but now till 100 KB I have used, and more than 100 KB also. So like that one you can check. So these are something which you just keep in mind when using image component, but rest all it's fine. Okay, so then this is input field. Input field is the same thing, similar to date field, but something where you need to enter a value. So when you want your user to have some input field where he can enter some text, so usage will be, actually you have one property with the Designer Studio, that you can save your application. Save in the sense like a bookmark or a snapshot. So that actually comes with this one, fragment gallery, which I have not covered because it's a little bit complicated thing. So in that scenario it comes, or if you want to even give there a search option. Let's say you are building an HR report and you want that, okay, uh, user have an option that he can search by employee name, or let's say employee ID. So in that case, because whenever he will enter his employee ID, next to that you can have a button something like search, and he will display the details, what is his name, age, what is his skills, location, etc., etc. So in that case this input field comes. So your question will be that something which can come into your mind is that, okay, why not provide a list of values for him? Like rather than entering the list of text value for employee ID, what if we provide a drop down with the list of values of employee name, number, and he can select. But the thing is, few of the organizations will have 10,000 people. So it will take him half a day to browse all the values. So easy is, we can ask him that, okay, enter the 6-digit employee ID, 8-digit employee ID, 4-digit, whatever. The extended usage or advanced usage is that you can ask him just to enter first 3 value, and then through wildcare you can, but that is a very complicated thing. I have done that one, but that is very complicated, that okay, search by only first 3 keyword. Easy is, you can ask him, the easiest is what I used is enter the 8-digit employee number. So that is quite easy, but even that is possible, wild character searching, like if he can enter first 3 and maybe matching 10 values, 15 values will be displayed, and he can select again out of these. So these are few of the usage of input fields. Okay, so generally these are the basic components. So what you can do is you can go through this all the session, and whatever little bit of a scripting I showed you, I did not wanted to make it complicated. So tomorrow what we will do is we will emphasis more on the scripting part. So what you can do is you can go through the session and see if any issue, any problem, or anything you feel that okay, what it does within the, or how we achieve that one. So anything, whatever you have questions or anything, you can check with. Tomorrow we can have that one also. Better if you have questions and answer, it's fine. So if you have time, you can just go through the session and see if any issue you find it difficult. Okay. Okay, so we will connect same time tomorrow. Just try to have a hands-on with these things. Okay. Yeah. Okay then. So see you tomorrow, same time. Everybody, bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.